and call this meeting to order. This evening, members, we are following two agendas as you have in your packages. We have the Committee of the Whole meeting, and that will be followed by our regular meeting of Council. We're going to start this evening off with a prayer by Councillor Dave Elliott, and that will be followed by the National Anthem by Mr. Joe Longfellow. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. This meeting tonight, that you let us debate the issues openly and fairly, and that we come to a equitable resolution for everything. Lord, just let us keep in mind that we do work for the citizens of our fair city, and we would just ask that you bless them all. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Joe. Well done as always.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My pleasure as always.
Madam Clerk, are there any addendum items this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. None this evening.
Thank you. Members of Council, I need a motion to confirm the agenda, please. Moved by Councillor Doucette, seconded by Councillor Kenny. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. We'll now move on to disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures this evening? Councillor Bodder.
Mr. Mayor, with item 12 involves Shirts and Shores, and I run a business in Shirts and Shores. And also item 14, it is a request by the Lions and with my affiliation with the Lions.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a conflict on item number 8. I have direct pecuniary interest as I represent the company in question in the item.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further disclosures? Members, Councillor Kenny? No? With none, we'll now move on to items requiring a separate discussion. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to poll 1 and 3, and then for Councillor Elliott's conflict 8, and for Councillor Bodner's conflicts 12 and 14.
Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 1 has been pulled, but I'd like to speak on that too when it comes up.
Thank you, Councillor. Further items? With none, mover and seconder for the remainder of the items. Councillor Steele, seconder. Councillor Doucette. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. We'll now move on to our presentations this evening. We have first a presentation by Ms. Joanne Ferraccioli. Joanne, as members of council recognize, is our health services coordinator, and she's here this evening with Dr. Jeff Remington, and they'll be speaking on the introduction of, first off, a medical learner, Mr. Matthew Bredner, and as well an update regarding the interprofessional care pilot project. Joanne, Dr. Remington, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Badaway, members of council, staff. Matthew Bredner couldn't be with us tonight. He had a death in his family, and we'd like to send our condolences to Matthew and his family on that. But I would like to still speak to the matter. We are very, very fortunate to have Matthew here. He is a physician's assistant student from McMaster University. He's here with Dr. Remington for 3 months. And as you all know, we have given up the lease on the apartment that we used to have for medical students, but we were very fortunate fortunate, and another community partner has come forward and accepted the funding that we do receive from McMaster University to offer funded accommodation for Matthew, and he is enjoying his time here very much in Port Colborne and sends his extreme appreciation to all of you for the support of this program. And I think Dr. Remington will allude to how Matthew fits into the whole overall project that we've been working on very hard since September, and the successes that we've had so far. So I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Thanks, Joanne. Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff. Again, thank you for the privilege of speaking to you tonight and giving you an update on this very exciting project that you've partnered with us, with the Lynn and McMaster on, the Interprofessional Care Project. Just to jog all of your memories, the IPC's mandate is to promote, integrate, align, and deliver a new improved method of primary care. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're not developing something that's going to cost a lot of money and require a lot of government legislation. We're looking at coming up with a new way of delivering family medical care, primary care, that uses existing programs out there but uses them more efficiently. We're very excited. Back in the fall, Minister Matthews made some public comments about changes in primary care, and she alluded to just this sort of model. So I'm here tonight to give you an update as to what's been happening with the project, and to let you know some of the deliverables that we have met by the April 1st date. First of all, you hired me. Thank you for that. And as Joanne said, we've been hard at work meeting with our partners. I think one of the more exciting things about this project is that we've re-engaged the family physicians in the city of Port Colborne. After the changes that occurred in the hospital well over 2.5 years ago, no longer do the family physicians all congregate at the hospital, work together, meet in the lounge, see each other on a daily basis doing rounds on inpatients. And we did somewhat disperse, and for a lot of reasons and on a lot of projects, we no longer really worked together on things. This project has brought everyone back into the fold. As part of our mandate, we regularly have physician engagement meetings to let the family doctors know what we're working on, to get their feedback, to find out from them if the programs that we're working on will meet the needs of their patients and their practices. And I can say that we've had over 80% attendance. We've had almost all the physicians come to at least one of the meetings. And of the projects that we're working on so far, over 80% of the physicians have already started integrating those projects into their practice. And that's a real success. I mean, you folks all know that working as a team is really important. And this is nice to have the family doctors in Port Colborne again working as a team. We're looking at expansion of program delivery. I've talked for years about the partnership that we've had in health with Waynfleet, starting off with the recruitment project. They've a couple times unsuccessfully tried to set up a nurse practitioner-led clinic in their municipality in an attempt to get primary care delivered in Waynfleet. We've met with Mayor Jeffs once, and I've presented to their council, and we're really excited at looking at ways to build on the IPC project and take primary care into the township of Waynfleet in some manner, and they're excited to work with us on that. Another interesting project that we're working on is one of our mandates is clinical integration. If you remember my first presentation here, I talked about the hypothetical patient that was discharged from hospital, and unfortunately there was that falling through the cracks, that gap in care from hospital to community. And I'm proud to say that we're one of the first, or the first, non-family health team in the province that's partnered with CCAC. So that starting in the next couple weeks, as a family physician in town, I will be partnered with a CCAC case manager. Right now, the case managers may have a varied caseload of all different family physicians' patients, but now I will have one case manager that I can go to for my patients. I will know who to call when there's issues, problems, perhaps a crisis in the wings for one of my patients. And on the other hand, the case manager will have one person to go to, one physician to call. We'll have regular meetings like rounds in the hospital. And we really hope to sort of narrow some of those gaps and to improve care in the home, because as the minister has stated, and as we all know, I mean, home care is going to be a very important part of primary care in the future, as it is now. Again, collaborating with the Lynn set down our mandate. They were the ones who helped bring us into being. and collaborating with them, we've worked to implement a new screening tool in our practices. A couple quick questions that my nursing staff or the staff at any of the family doctor's offices can do. Some key questions that looks at those seniors that are coming to see us that are at risk of decompensation, at risk of ending up in emergency, things like falling, alone in the home. By answering these questions and doing this questionnaire, if you test positive, questionnaire gets faxed to CCAC, they get fast-tracked, so that hopefully we can intervene before that senior ends up in the emergency department, admitted with something that could have been completely preventable with early intervention. And again, that's an exciting project with the LHIN. We're the second community in our LHIN to implement that. Program innovation, again, one of the things that we're looking at doing. We're working with Pfizer, the pharmaceutical company, as a partner with Dr. Linda Lee, who is a very prominent family physician in the McMaster Kitchener-Waterloo campus. And we're looking at setting up a dementia screening program, something right here in Port Colborne, right here in the hands of the family physicians and their staff, so that we can start looking for early identification of those folks at risk of developing dementia or who are developing dementia. Again, pick up any newspaper, read anything, talks about that Alzheimer's disease is going to be the epidemic in the next 10 or 20 years. We want to identify these folks, again, before it reaches the crisis stage. Innovative partnering with the university, with Dr. Lee, with Pfizer, with our partners in the geriatric assessment program at the Niagara Health System. And again, hopefully in the next couple weeks to couple months, you'll hear a lot more about this as we get it going. Program alignment. Again, we're not reinventing the wheel. We've got 3 diabetic education programs in this community. All do very good work, but they do it in a very discoordinated way. The IPC has helped to bring all the players to the table to work to streamline referrals, to find out what folks are doing well, and to make sure that we're using the resources that are available to our community for diabetic education in an efficient way, in a way that helps the patients the most, but also gives those programs the mandate that they need to go ahead, get more funding if it's needed. For example, gestational diabetes, pregnant women that are diabetic, there's a real lack of care in this community. We're working to change that. The interconnectivity. If you watch the TV commercials, you'd think that every healthcare provider in the province, whether it be the hospital or my office or the nursing home, is all connected electronically. It's coming, but it's very slow. And again, we're working with our tech partners to bring this into play. Some things that the patients will see, increased use of the telehealth network, where you won't have to go see a specialist. We're looking at bringing psychiatry into Port Colborne using telehealth. It'll be a bit of a change for some people sitting in front of a two-way TV screen, but we know that most people now, Skype and FaceTime and these things, they're not that foreign anymore. It's not just the Jetsons that do things like this. Rather than trying to bring specialists to this community, which can be hard to do, we'll bring them here electronically, get the patients those expert consultations without having to leave the city of Port Colborne. And again, most importantly, as I talked about before, the engagement of the physicians, but also the engagement of the learners. McMaster is a partner on this project because as that medical school in St. Catharines grows and as more and more learners choose Niagara as the place that they want to study medicine, and hopefully when they're done studying medicine, practice medicine, we need to increase the capacity, the number of medical students and learners we get in Port Colborne. Port Colborne is a community, I've been here 17 years now, if you can believe that. For 15 of those years, I've been teaching medical students, and I have to thank all of you and your predecessors for your participation, your support, and for being on the forefront in a lot of ways in a municipality supporting medical education. We're going to do that and more in the future. Again, Rural Medicine Week is coming the week of Victoria Day in May. And again, we're going to be hosting young, impressionable medical students from the University of Ottawa, giving them a taste of life in the small town, a taste of medical practice in the small town. We have an all-time high participation rate of our physicians at 70%. And even Dr. Ashworth, the chiropractor in my office, she's getting involved. We know that this is going to be a great experience for them. And just a little bit of an aside, of all the medical school learners that we've hosted that graduated from medical school this year, I'm pleased to say that every single one of them got their first choice of residency and internship program this year. A lot of them ask us for letters of reference. We do keep in touch with them. It's the Port Colborne alumni, if you like. They all got their first choice, and that's really, if any of you are teachers or educators, you know how exciting and proud that is. Really exciting is the fact that 2 of our learners will be starting in the McMaster Family Medicine residency program in St. Catharines this summer. They would like to do some of their education here in Port Colborne as part of the residency program, and we really hope that when they're done that program, they will be setting up their practices, hopefully in Port Colborne, but somewhere in Niagara or South Niagara. So again, it shows the program works, what we're doing works, and your sponsorship and your great support of the program is appreciated. Again, I would like to blow our own horn a bit and say that we are meeting our mandate. This model is expected to show an excellent management of resources, improved health outcomes, better satisfaction for patient navigation. I think in our first 6 to 8 months, we're showing that that's happening. I think the program will only grow and improve as more of these programs get on the ground, and as the physicians and patients of this wonderful community take advantage of them. And again, thank you for your attention tonight. Be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Dr. Remington, and thank you, Joanne. Members of council, are there any questions or comments? Councillor Bodner and Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Joanne, or Dr. Remington, I guess. You alluded to the fact that a medical student was put up by a local business. Is there any reason we don't mention that business's name? Did they ask us not to, or?
Oh, no, not at all. We'd be happy to. Canal Side.
Absolutely.
The studio at Canal Side and Greg and Rosemary have been absolutely fantastic. They have fed Matthew, which is just incredible. The first day that he came was a Sunday, and Greg and Rosemary aren't normally open, but they came in to meet with him. They've been fantastic to work with, and we know for a fact that we have another learner coming for 3 months, and Greg and Rosemary are more than happy to work with us with the funding that they do receive from McMaster.
Thank you, Joanne.
That's good news. And I'll just mention that funding is less than what they could rent what they normally rent that for.
Absolutely.
So,
it shows their...
Yeah, important we recognize community members that, think it's a good idea, yet, take a hit on the rent. So just wanted to bring that up. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Joanne. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Dr. Remington. This telepsychiatry program, and we need the psychiatrists in this area, and we know we don't get enough of that in the Niagara region. But the telepsychiatry program, is it going to be similar to the one that is already established at the Douglas Memorial site? Because you say 2 sites in Port Colborne. So I'm just wondering if that same program that they have at DMH is going to be available to Port Colborne residents.
Dr. Remington.
Thanks.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Kenny. Yes, it'll be built on pretty much the exact same model. The 2 sites that currently have telehealth in the city of Port Colborne, one is the hospital, the other is the Bridges Community Health Center. The program in Douglas Memorial is quite successful. The infrastructure, the organization, and the planning that went into that is more than adequate. And again, our mandate is not to reinvent the wheel. We're going out looking for programs that are working already. That program's worked well. The Niagara Health System has been very cooperative in helping us copy that program for the city of Port Colborne.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Dr. Remington. Councillor Demeray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Joanne and Dr. Remington. I don't have a question to ask. I just would like to say thank you, not just for observing your mandate and making sure that you do meet it, but for going above and beyond, because you certainly both do, and as well as the people that you work with. And just thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Well, for myself, both Joanne and Dr. Remington, I thank you for coming out this evening. As Councillor Demeray as well stated, thank you for all the work that you've done. There's no doubt that you folks and others have went well beyond the call of duty with respect to providing those healthcare services and even working towards the allied healthcare services here in our community. You actually contributed to this evening's theme, which is collaboration, with respect to not only with us here at City Hall, but also Dr. Remington with your colleagues in the medical community, and of course Joanne with you, with everyone else, the LIN, the ministry, the region, and of course those throughout the city with Allied Health. you are in fact aligning the different programs together, and that's what's overall needed here in the city of Port Colborne, if not in South Niagara and then all of Niagara. So I as well, on behalf of council, and more importantly, on behalf of each and every citizen that you're representing with respect to medical health care, congratulations and thank you. We are now going to move on to delegations. Our first delegation this evening is Virginia Stewart, Community Coordinator for the Niagara Age-Friendly Communities Initiative, Region of Niagara, the Niagara Age-Friendly Community Initiative Project. Virginia, as always, welcome.
Thank you very much. Again, my name is Virginia Stewart, and I'm the Community Coordinator for Niagara Age-Friendly. And tonight with me is Doug Rappeljay, who's come to join me. Did you want to stand up here, or you're going to? Who is very familiar to many of you, but from an age-friendly perspective, he is the gentleman that brought the idea of age-friendly here to Niagara. As well, he is a member on the Niagara Age-Friendly Community Initiative Management Committee, as well as the chair of the Seniors Advisory Committee for the City of Welland that oversees the age-friendly project in the City of Welland.
Doug, welcome, as always.
And he will be more than pleased to answer any questions that you may have about the initiative. So your worship, members of council, staff, members of the gallery, and viewers, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk to you about this exciting project, Age Friendly. What I'm going to do tonight is just give you a general overview of the, I think I can move that up here, an overview of the project that, that complements the information that I circulated to members of council and should be in your package. There's a letter, a report that was sent to council March 2011 from the regional clerk, which affirms the commitment to age-friendly from the regional council perspective, encouraging everyone to take on self-assessment as well as for the regional staff to participate in information sessions. Also in your package, you should have a self-assessment that champions age-friendly supporters as well as a year one summary report. Niagara has joined a global effort led by the World Health Organization to become an age-friendly community. An age-friendly community is one that enables the citizens, indeed all populations, to live in security, maintain their health, and participate fully in society. Worldwide, there is a growing demographic of older adults. It is increasing at alarming rates like never before. In Canada, the aging population started to accelerate in 2011 when the first baby boomer crossed the line. And this will continue until 2031. And we are working towards a community that will have more seniors than children. And what is contributing to this event? Obviously, it's a strong increase in the number of births in the 20 years following World War II, as well as people are living longer due to the significant achievement in public health and in standards of living. Age-friendly is deemed as one of the most effective policy approaches to planning for the increase of our aging population. And over 500 communities across Canada have joined the World Health Organization as being on the path to being age-friendly. And the City of Welland was the first in 2011, 2011, to be recognized by the World Health Organization. With age-friendly, there are no winners or losers. Everyone benefits. From being age-friendly, older adults, promoting benefit, this print is far too small for me, by promoting the security they need, a community that maintains their health, it's not age-friendly. My first lesson, yeah. And supports their participation fully in the community. It also benefits businesses. If older adults make up a larger proportion of the consumer market, spending $25 million a year, and older adults are loyal customers and outspend younger shoppers, then meeting the needs of older adult consumers makes good sense and increases the bottom line. Age-friendly also benefits voluntary organizations. If client relationships are important, then organization policy, practice, and behaviors that meet older adults' needs are important. If funding is important to voluntary organizations, then age-friendly is a mean to leverage funds. Many organizations are taking opportunity of the new funds for seniors from the Ontario Trillium Foundation, as well as the Horizon grants. And I know in Niagara West, they received some funding to do some focus groups and work on age-friendly projects. As well as it benefits everybody. What is good for older adults is good for others. Bicycle lanes for seniors is important for all ages. Shoveling a sidewalk for improved mobility is important for seniors, as well as a parent wanting to walk their child to school. So turning to the Niagara landscape, there was a group of people who came together in about 2009 who were aware of this growing population of older adults, and they wanted to do something about it. They wanted to build the awareness and encourage action that respects and values the needs and interests of older adults, and indeed all of the populations. The partners are two scopes. One, Welland, which is the pilot, and has been for the last, I guess, year and a half, working on this project, as well as the Niagara region. One of the first steps that we did in Niagara was appointing a wide range of thinkers to a vision committee. And through their wisdom, a strategic plan was developed with a vision that the Niagara Age-Friendly Initiative project aim at creating a caring community for all ages. Through the funding of the Ontario Trillium Foundation, we've been able to put together a resource team of myself, along with other volunteers, to assist each community in their efforts to become more age-friendly, with the aim of being recognized by the World Health Organization. And we've already had a wonderful focus group here in the chambers and the committee room. The age-friendly framework for our project here in Niagara is threefold. It's made up of the World Health Organization, as well as the Public Agency of Canada and the Murray Alzheimer's Research and Education Program of Waterloo University. And we've carried out community consultations across Niagara. We have one focus group left to do in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and this will help with our program planning and putting together better action plans that meet the needs of older adults in each of the communities. In Welland, our pilot, the results of the focus groups and other information collection, we developed a list of 101 ideas that could improve the community. And Doug Rappeljay and the local action committee, Chair Deb Rollo, presented these actions to council, and they are acting upon all of these. And they're all available if you're interested. I've included the year one report in your package, as well as the full report is available online. A lot of partners have joined in the project. We have partners from businesses and volunteer organizations, as well as many partners from the public sector have joined on board, such as the Niagara Region Accessibility Advisory Committee at the regional level. So to us, age-friendly just makes a lot of good sense. And this should not be looked at as a project that's going to cost a lot of money and take up a lot of staff time, but it's a means of enhancing the work that's already being done by the City of Port Colborne. And Niagara has the second largest population in Ontario, and so we really need everybody's help in making sure that we're raising the bar to accommodate this growing demographic of older adults. And so our request this evening, we'd like to make is that the Council of the City of Port Colborne receive for information the presentation by myself on behalf and Doug Rappeljay of the Niagara Age-Friendly Initiative, and as a follow-up to the report that was circulated to Council back in a year ago. As well, that the Council receive the Year 1 Niagara Age-Friendly Community Initiative report, and that the City of Port Colborne also affirm its commitment to age-friendly principles, and further that the City of Port Colborne staff be encouraged to engage in age-friendly sessions and other related events to learn more about age-friendly, and that the information regarding age-friendly be referred to the City of Port Colborne Accessibility Committee and Senior Advisory Committee and other committees that address and serve an older adult population.
Well done. Thank you. Members of Council, are there any questions or comments? Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I believe Mr. Rappeljay is coming to our seniors group in May, 17th. If I remember right.
17th of May.
Yeah, that's it. So that's already been arranged and already set up. As for the accessibility committee, I'm not sure if anyone's talked about that, but I'm sure that they'll be more than willing to look at that, and we are definitely looking at something like that in Port Colborne. So just to let you know that the seniors action committee is a very active group that has already started looking at this. So
thank you, Councillor. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Worship. As far as the accessibility committee, I chair that particular committee, and we've already had our presentation at our last meeting, and there's already some collaboration between our committee and Virginia ongoing. So should be speaking with Carrie, who's our secretary for that. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to say that as a member of the Seniors Advisory Committee, we've been working very hard with Virginia and getting on board with this. Members of our committee did an outreach to the other seniors clubs in town just this week. We've had a very favorable response from them. We're working very hard on it, and in theory, we have actually approved going forward with the age-friendly, but our minutes won't be official until our next meeting, so we can't do anything about that yet. But just to know, we think it's a great idea. Working very hard, looking forward to working with Doug and hearing what Welland's doing and what ideas will be good here. It's an exciting committee that's working very, very hard.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Worship. Just one question. In regards to the funding from the Ontario Trillium Foundation, that was, you received that for the Welland Rose Seniors Center, right?
Yeah, we had to have an organization that was eligible, Mr. Mayor and Council, to receive it. So the foundation, which we were very pleased about, came forward and offered to apply for the grant, which was over a 3-year period, $222,000. And we're now into our 3rd year.
And does funding from the
Trillium
continue?
No.
No. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any further questions or comments, members of Council? Does Council have an appetite to actually deal with this resolution this evening? Okay, if I can have a mover. Actually, I need a mover and seconder to allow that to happen. Leave of Council, please. Councillor Doucette. Councillor Steele. Are there any questions or comments to allowing leave of Council? With none, all those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried to the motion. Councillor Desmarais, you're moving it. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Doucette. Are there any questions or comments to that resolution? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried unanimously. Thank you, folks.
Mr. Mayor and Council, we thank you because I had the privilege of working in this community, and I had no doubts about the support for this, and it's a very caring community, so we do appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you to make Port Colborne an age-friendly community.
Wonderful. Thank you, Doug, and Virginia, thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. And I just one more thing, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to ask if Port Cares is here this evening. Oh, they are? Well, that's great. I wasn't too sure. Just wanted to recognize Port Cares as one of the first in Niagara to have completed a self-assessment, and this was in 2011. And I just want to, if it's all right, if sure. Congratulations on being the first in Port Colborne to join the age-friendly movement. We applaud you for taking the time to complete the age-friendly self-assessment. Achieving this step shows you recognize the importance of providing, enabling, and a supportive environment that helps older adults, indeed all ages, to age actively, enhance their independence, and improve their quality of life. Niagara Age Friendly is dedicated to making Niagara a caring community for all ages that optimizes opportunities for an enhanced quality of life as people age. The Niagara region, the City of Welland, and other participating municipalities, towns and townships, seniors, groups, community leaders, and service providers are partnering to raise awareness of age-friendly principles across all sectors of the community and encouraging action that takes into consideration the needs of all citizens with a particular focus on older adults. We encourage you to continue on the path to being age-friendly. You're not off the hook. By pledging an age-friendly action you will take in the next 6 months to help an establishment improve age-friendliness will bring us that much closer to achieving our goal. Thank you for your efforts in making your community age-friendly.
Thank you, and thank you, Linda. Just one comment I want to make to Virginia and Doug as well. Any collaboration, and this is the theme of the evening, any collaboration that we can help you with respect to what some of our councilors are doing with the seniors and the accessibility advisory committees, and vice versa. I know, Doug, and Virginia are very much involved in different initiatives throughout the City of Welland, and by all means, if there's something that you can keep us in the back of your mind for, let us know so we can collaborate about some of those issues.
I think you've already helped us with the meeting we had with you, your support, and again, the motion you passed tonight, I think very clearly shows the city's interest in it, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll now move on to our second delegation this evening. We have Mr. George Henry, the President of Community Living, Port Colborne Wainfleet. With respect to their 50th anniversary of Community Living, Port Colborne Wainfleet, I see Vicki Moreland back there as well. Welcome, Vicki. It's great to have you out this evening. George, welcome.
Mayor Badaway, members of council, staff, members of the gallery, and citizens at home. I'm really pleased to be here this year, especially because 2012 is the 50th anniversary of the work that Community Living has been doing in Port Colborne. In the early 60s, very early 60s, a small group of families gathered together with a couple things in mind. One was to find a way of providing supports and services for their children and young adults without shipping them hundreds of miles away to live in institutions run by the government. And the second reason was to have their children included in a community that cares. Our first programs that we offered were simply a nursery program for children and a day program for adults. In 1962, the organization was incorporated as Port Colborne Association for Retarded Children. Many of you will remember that name and some of the bad press that it generated over the years. And we've worked very hard over the last few years to try and eradicate the R word, even going so far as last year conducting a funeral and burial of the R word on our property over on McKay in the east side. We asked you all last year to make it your personal project to tell folks who use that word that you didn't appreciate it being used in this community, that we're a community that cares. And we again ask you to continue doing that this year. Our vision is that someday the word will not exist. Today we're known as Community Living, and we're still dedicated to helping people live quality lives in a community. We continue to help communities. Communities like Port Colborne and Wainfleet become communities where everyone belongs. We are committed to inspiring possibilities for all people who have intellectual disabilities. Today, we provide a wide range of programs for people of all ages with intellectual disabilities. Our amazing staff help adults to live in homes and in apartments throughout Port Colborne. Many of these individuals have jobs in the community. Many volunteer at community events like Canal Days. We have a huge number of them that are out every year. Can't wait for Canal Days. The Center for Community Living was developed on McRae Avenue, and our 50th AGM will be held on June 21st, and we invite all of you and all of the citizens of Port Colborne to come out that day. The center will be open, and we will have a history for you of the work that we've done in the community. May is Community Living Month in the province of Ontario, and our message continues to be the importance of respecting the rights of people with disabilities and the importance of social inclusion in the communities in which they live. We invite everyone to attend our flag-raising ceremony downstairs on Friday morning at 9 a.m. And help us celebrate the start of our 50th anniversary. We're going to be having a number of activities throughout the year. We're looking at a trivia night, a number of luncheons, our annual theater event in the fall, and hoping to kick off our next 50 years with a gala event in the spring. And so we hope that everyone will help support those activities. We want to thank you again for having us here tonight to bring this message to all of you and to the people of Port Colborne and Wainfleet. This council and this city has been very supportive of the work that we do, and we thank you for that. It is not possible for us to do it all ourselves, and we really appreciate your support and help. We want to say thank you to the dedicated volunteers throughout the community who come out and help make events that we have successful. As always, we'd like to encourage everyone in Port Colborne to celebrate Community Living Awareness Month by simply including someone with an intellectual disability in one of your social activities sometime in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George. Well stated. Members of Council, are there any questions or comments? With none, George, before you go anywhere, just 1 second. George, it's the very least we can do to express our appreciation for what Community Living has done here in the city of Port Colborne. Not just the organization as it stands as a title, but what the substance of that organization has been throughout the past 50 years. People like yourself, from the volunteer side, the board of directors, there's so many that involve themselves to ensure that the members are very well looked after, and sometimes they look after you. And I know that because I've experienced a few of those situations. But also from the staff side, I know Vicki and her staff are very dedicated to the organization and as well the community. When George stands here, or Vicki stand here, and expresses their interest in ensuring that the city of Port Colborne truly is a community where everyone belongs, it goes a long way. There's no question that the work that you folks do, and of course what then is allowed for those members throughout the community to be able to live a life in a community where everyone belongs, is extremely important. And I'm hoping that not just members of council, but those members throughout the community take on that challenge that you give us every year to ensure that we all work together and collaborate together to ensure that Port Colborne is that community where everyone belongs. So it's my pleasure, members of council, on your behalf, but more importantly, on behalf of the residents of the city of Port Colborne, to present to the Community Living Port Colborne Wainfleet congratulations and appreciation of your 50th anniversary, On behalf of members of City Council and all the citizens of the City of Port Colborne, may I, on their behalf, express my sincere appreciation for your continued commitment to the residents of our communities. George, well done. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, everyone. It's a bit of a surprise, and it's humbling. We do it because we love doing it. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Well stated. Well said. Oh, sorry. Vicky, come on up here. We'll get the rows between the two thorns. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Vicky. I still can't believe, I remember back when Community Living first took over their facility, the former St. Teresa School. In one day, and mind you, this was with the help of Canadian Tire Financial Services, and one day they went from a building that was locked up, boarded up, mothballed pretty well for, I think, close to a decade, if not longer, to having in one day, having a facility that was pretty well move-in ready. Because of the volunteers and all the people that made it happen. So there's no question that you folks have grown and matured into an organization that truly is part of the community, but by the community. So to all you folks, well done. It's very much appreciated. Members of council, I'm now going to move on to my mayor's report. And once again, sticking with the theme of collaboration, I have to say, first and foremost, that we're finding out more and more that collaboration really does work. I'm going to start off by speaking about the South Niagara Healthcare Corporation. And after all that has been accomplished, and I think we heard a bit of that today from Joanne and Dr. Remington, all that's been accomplished throughout the past few years for the benefit of the residents of the City of Port Colborne, we are now extremely eager to work with our neighboring South Niagara partners to consider expanding these and many additional established programs in their respective communities. I think once again, speaking about the seniors committee, as well as the Accessibility Advisory Committee, working with the age-friendly folks from region-wide, particularly in the city of Welland, it really gives us an opportunity to collaborate in the best interests, not for us as politicians, but in the best interests, most importantly, of the folks that we as elected representatives represent. Through discussions with our medical faculty, such as Dr. Remington, we have established a mandate to have the ability to replicate those projects, the ones that we've established here in the City of Port Colborne, throughout all of South Niagara and possibly beyond throughout the Niagara region. As we face further expected acute care bed cuts, we must, members of council, must develop an appropriate and equitable critical care pathway that meets best practice standards, STEMI protocols, and attracts physicians that will want to practice here in the region of Niagara. Although we have addressed the primary care needs and have developed an excellent clinical care services plan that will meet the needs of Port Colborne, we must collectively work on a plan to meet further needs of all the citizens of South Niagara. For example, we must ensure that patients convalesce close to home, meeting the needs of the Lynn Clinical Services Plan. One voice to the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care is critical to develop a plan that addresses, another example, chronic disease prevention and treatment, as well as a plan that encompasses the ever-evolving healthcare needs here in the south part of the Niagara region. As we heard tonight, the Interprofessional Care Project, the IPC, has all of our physicians engaged, excited, and hopeful that we can provide excellent care in all of our communities without duplication of servicing, using our healthcare dollars in a fiscally responsible manner, and most importantly, members of council, finding programs that align with each other, that are already available in our communities, that may not be at capacity, thereby utilizing very little capital Ministry of Health and long-term care funding. This funding will not be available to us individually. Therefore, we need to work together to develop a health care delivery system that works for all of us, hence the importance of working together, collaborating. Our intent is to further engage the physicians, not only here in the city of Port Colborne, but throughout the entire southern tier of Niagara. Moving forward, our entire team is focused on delivering equitable access to health care and ensuring it is done in a most efficient manner. We look forward to working in collaboration with representation from all South Niagara municipalities, most importantly, physician representation from those very communities. We have a desire to develop a critical and acute care pathway that builds on the work we have already completed here in the city of Port Colborne and extending and expanding that into all of South Niagara. With respect to our Niagara wind energy manufacturing cluster and the Highway 140-406 industrial lands, the city of Port Colborne continues its efforts to capitalize on opportunities in the green energy industry sector. It has been a collective approach that includes economic development staff, Mr. Stephen Thompson and his staff, working with municipal and private sector partners, advancing the Niagara Wind Energy Manufacturing Cluster Initiative, which promotes Port Colborne and South Niagara as a leading manufacturing center for the wind energy industry here in the province of Ontario. I had the opportunity to speak with residents and members of the business community last week during an information session hosted by the city and the region to discuss a municipal class environmental assessment, a Class EA, to identify a preferred method of expanding the long-term security of water and wastewater servicing here in the city of Port Colborne, including the large area of undeveloped industrial properties east of the Welland Canal along Highway 140-406. The region is undertaking an amendment to the regional policy plan to implement the Gateway Economic Center. The Gateway Economic Center is the settlement areas in Thorold, Welland, and Port Colborne. The Gateway Amendment provides strategic direction for the development of employment lands within the Gateway and outlines a land use strategy to support economic development and job creation in those very areas. The proposed amendment also addresses vacant rural employment lands in Thorold and Port Colborne, located in the vicinity of the urban employment lands in both those two municipalities. These areas, members of council, are appropriate for a new land use category entitled Rural Employment Land, given the circumstances and nature of the historic development land use planning approach. This is a report that you entertained a few weeks ago, made recommendation to the region, and now the region is now out asking for a response from municipalities as well as the business community. As well, members, given the multimodal transportation network available along Highway 140 and 406, there is an economic opportunity to extend a manufacturing cluster from Port Colborne on into the city of Welland and into the city of Thorold, thus meeting our mandate, once again, of economic development and job creation. The Niagara Gateway Economic Center strategy has focused on achieving new investment and employment within the Niagara region. Our objective is to create the necessary investment climate through new land use policies, as you're fully aware of, the implementation of specific infrastructure improvements, such as that we discussed during our EA review last week here at City Hall, and targeted incentives to make existing employment lands, such as those along the 140 and 406, more attractive, as well as attaching to that strategic marketing efforts to those specific sectors, as I spoke about earlier, such as the wind manufacturing cluster. These efforts are currently being undertaken with the involvement and support of all levels of government, the broader business community, and binational partners, once again, truly a collaborative approach. The region has identified the city of Port Colborne as an important component of the Niagara Gateway Economic Center because it is an obvious location for the manufacturing and transport of products such as wind energy turbines and related components. The city's available lands, multimodal transportation network, infrastructure, current industrial supply chain, and location on the Great Lakes makes Port Colborne and South Niagara a one-stop shop for wind energy manufacturing operations. The proposed wind energy manufacturing cluster includes nearly 400 hectares of land located in various locations throughout the city of Port Colborne, but as well, members, includes an abundant amount of lands within the cities of Welland and Thorold. Conceptual drawings presented by Rankin Construction, one of the private sector companies working with the city on the wind energy manufacturing initiative, call for the manufacturing of wind turbines to take place on 48.3 hectare site along the Welland Canal, off Highway 14406 on Ramey Road, near Second Concession. An additional 43.7 hectares are available on the east side of the canal, south of the Clarence Street Bridge, for assembly and transportation. 140 hectares on the present site of the Port Colborne Quarries, located off Highway 3 and 140, is available for the supply of aggregate, storage, and manufacturing. Once again, we all look forward to collaborating with all levels of government, communities, and the private sector to move forward our economic strategies and create new jobs with respect to the Niagara Gateway Economic Center strategies. However, our collaboration does not stop there. It does not stop within the Niagara region. I intend to initiate at a regional level a process to collaborate with our partners to the west, as we have to the east with our binational partners, including cities such as Hamilton, Brantford, Kitchener-Waterloo, London, Sarnia, and Windsor. Organizations such as their local chambers of commerce and the Southern Ontario Gateway Council to advocate for improved transportation networks that aligns our respective gateways, which in turn aligns our available lands, multimodal capabilities, road, water, rail, and air, our skilled workforce, and our supply chains. I know Stephen and I are working on that right now, and hopefully that will happen much sooner rather than later so that those alignments can be made. So with that, members of council, any questions or comments? With none, Councillor Barrick, Regional Council's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and appreciate the update on the Economic Gateway as well, and the work that you're doing on that front. It's always a pleasure to be here, members of council, to provide some information. I'd like to take the opportunity this evening to speak a little bit about, as you've been saying, Mr. Mayor, the theme of this evening, collaboration, in particular with the Niagara Community Observatory. And if I may, I'm just going to take the opportunity to pass some of these out. So I've just handed out a brochure that speaks a little bit about the Niagara Community Observatory. What is that? It's a unit of Brock University. Part of my role on regional council, I've had the honor and pleasure to have been selected as Niagara Region's representative on the Niagara Community Observatory. Its mission is to work in partnership and a collaboration with the Niagara community to foster, produce, and disseminate evidence-based research on current and emerging issues. One of their goals is, again, to produce objective, credible, evidence-based research to support a community-based decision-making process. The observatory engages in research both on its own initiative and by working with other organizations. Its major research focus is the Niagara area, but with reference to how the Niagara area is situated in provincial, national, binational, and international spheres. You can see, members of council, in the brochure, some of the selected policy briefs that they've come up with in the past. There's several more, and they can all be found online, www.brocku.ca/NCO. They also do community cafes, but some other policy briefs have included The Young Are the Restless, Attracting and Retaining Young People in the Niagara Region, The Changing Economic Structure of Niagara, and Sports Contributions to Niagara's Economy and Community Well-Being. Some of the other ones, we just had a meeting this morning, in fact. Some of the other ones which I think are important as well is they've come out with one regarding municipal reorganization and how to select the regional chair, which I think is very timely for the region. Moving forward, they have decided to look at YMCA research project, which also I think is timely for Port Colborne, and looking at the impacts of communities when a YMCA comes to a particular community. So that report will be released shortly, and I'd be happy to bring that to this community, no doubt. Some of the other ones, cost of poverty in Niagara and Niagara Remedial Action Plan. These policy briefs really assist not only in providing information for decision makers such as yourself and the region, but also to nonprofits and other agencies in the region. I bring this forward this evening, one, to inform, of course, but also to seek feedback as well, because the Niagara Community Observatory is always looking for additional research opportunities and partnerships. So some of the future activities include looking at farmers markets and food safety regulations. We've had that conversation at the region, Mr. Mayor. The quality of beaches, also relevant for Port Colborne. The 2011 census. And this morning I was able to put on the agenda looking at the effects of wetland mapping and their impacts. We saw a slide not long ago that showed in the year 2000 the areas of Niagara which were designated wetlands. And now 10 years later, it's effectively that area is doubled. So what does that impact have on conservation, and what's that impact on development, especially when you add in floodplain mapping and aquifers, et cetera. So I think that would be an interesting one moving forward, to see that really it's regulation gone wild, so to speak. With that aside, Mr. Mayor, I'd also like to bring to the attention of council and the public the region's Earth Day rain barrel sale. Niagara Region celebrates Earth Day this year with a variety of events in April, including tours of the Niagara Recycling Center, the Walker Composting Facility, and the Glen Ridge Naturalization Site, as well as the sale of rain barrels to support the United Way. Rain barrels are on sale at the region. They have to be pre-ordered by calling the region or going online. They're $50. And again, some of that money goes towards the United Way. There's also self-guided tours at the Elm Street Naturalization Site and Leash Free Dog Park, and the Station Road site in Wainfleet. Again, that's on April 25th, and at regional headquarters it'll include environmental displays and small electronics recycling collection. So for further information there, feel free to contact the region. And finally, Mr. Mayor, one of the big issues that we're going to be facing this week on Thursday is the Provincial Offences Court consolidation. We have a public meeting coming up, and I bring that again to the attention of this council and the public because it's not too late to send in comments. The recommendation that we're going to be examining is to consolidate the POA program's present facilities into one 4-courtroom facility. That specific location hasn't been recommended yet, although I suspect it'll be in North Niagara, either St. Catharines or the area around Niagara Regional Headquarters. I'm not personally 100% sold on that recommendation as of yet, although I will wait until Thursday night. One of the other options is to keep 2 open. Again, so I bring that forward for information and for feedback. That's my presentation this evening, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Barrick. Members of council, are there any questions or comments to the regional councillor? With none, thank you, David. Members will now move on to councillors' items, new business. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Worship. I see the chief's hiding in the back there, but Chief, if you could just pass through to Mike Bendia our thanks with regards to the fire on King Street. They had all their goods parked out on the sidewalk. I know Councillor Elliott had called, I had called, so they were about 5 days ahead of schedule of removing that. So just tell Mike we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Further new business, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. And yeah, Councillor Steele, I had a neighbor called and complained about it right away, and it was nice to see. And she actually called back and said, thanks for the quick action. So pass that along. That was really well done. Just a couple of issues that I had phone calls on this past week. I had one on resident, I guess I'll direct this to Mr. Hanson, on Catherine Street with regards to no parking signs from Adelaide to Kent. I did call bylaw to wonder why there's no parking signs just in that 2-block section of Catherine. You can park on both sides, both north and south of that little area. The problem that was passed along is that there's so many driveways on the west side of Catherine that you can't get a lot of cars to park. And in that 2-block section, they take up all the spaces and there's nowhere else to park. The reason that was given to me was that the street pinches down and it narrows down. But when you drive up and down and look up and down, the street remains the same width the whole length of Catherine. So if you could just give me an answer why, so I can get back to the resident that asked. There is a shoulder on both sides of the road, so I'm just concerned as to why we have the no parking there.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'd be happy to review that and come back with a recommendation.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. I got another phone call. I think Councillor Bodner dealt with this last year. The area behind the hospital, where the big parking lot is, there's the grassed area beside it where the old helipad is. I got a complaint about garbage that was laying out and about, and I took a drive by there today. There still is a little bit. The gentleman said that he picked some up in his travels. I did notice that there's no garbage cans in that whole parking lot. And I know that the Conservation Club last year had mentioned how badly taken care of or managed it is. And I know it's early in the year, and I just wondered if we could get a handle on that. Maybe if a couple of garbage cans were placed down there, people would be kind of persuaded to use them. I know that, Ron, I think you had a couple of concerns with that last year through the Conservation Club had come in and asked about the maintenance of it. Yeah, so if we could take a look at that and get a handle on that going forward. And just the last thing, I think everybody's aware, we had the fire down at the end of King Street at the old Shell station. I had 3 phone calls about vandalism, Yardbirds up on Clarence Street, San Marcos, Subway. We had the arson on King Street, and I've had complaints from West Street. I think we all saw the one email that came out. I got the call from Yardbirds today. It's only April, and I hate to beat a dead horse, but we need to be proactive on this year. Things seem to be escalating. The lady at Yardbirds, when she called, was really disappointed. She had a bunch of stuff that was overturned. Some signs were stolen. There was a couple of pallets, she said, were taken across the street and laid up against the TD Canada Trust Bank. And we haven't got into the warm part of the summer yet. I know that the staff sergeant had emailed us and was open to a meeting. I would just like to put it out. Maybe we should get the BIA together with the staff sergeant. I would volunteer because I'm on the BIA in downtown anyways, and it's our ward. We've got to get a meeting and we've got to get something done. I know that the staff had said that they patrol through the daytime, but all this is happening at night. As you're aware, I don't know if everybody saw it, but there was a house fire out in Waynfleet over the last Saturday it was. They're saying it's arson. The home was vandalized twice. Once they broke in and flooded it, and the second time they come back and set it on fire. So there seems to be a rash of vandalism going on in the area. Specifically to us, downtown seems to be the target. I don't know, and I haven't heard of any other complaints from any other area with as much as what we're getting, and it's just the downtown core. So I think we need to get together with the local detachment. We really need to get on top of this before it gets out of hand for the rest of the summer. So I'm just putting that out there. If we could get in contact with the Staff Sergeant Haday and get some kind of meeting. I don't know what the answer is. I know that in his email he said he's looking for advice, answers, help. I think we've got to put our thinking caps on and see if we can be done about it.
Thank you, Councillor. Chief, did you have any follow-up you wanted to add to that? Actually, if I can just comment on both issues, and both Staff Sergeant Haday, myself, and Chief Cartwright have been in dialogue throughout the past, Staff Sergeant Haday throughout the past year, with the Chief throughout the past day or two. With respect to the incidences happening down in the West Street area, down in the downtown area, I think the Staff Sergeant's been very forthright with respect to his strategies that he's putting in place. I think we all have seen that in the emails that he sent to us. You know, both with respect to foot patrol, obviously vehicle patrol. He actually has Staff Sergeant Bujazek, who is the liaison between the BIA and of course the NRP, and they're doing what they can with the resources that they have. With that said, I think we're hard pressed to have the ability to place officers there 24/7. So we do have to count on others to, as we've said from day one, to, if there's in fact a challenge, to call it in and ensure that we get the response by the NRP there as quickly as possible. But of course, there's other ideas that we're asking for from the business community with respect to some of the thoughts that they may have as well. So a meeting is being set up. My office is in the process of ensuring that now that we're getting into the warm season, that we have a meeting just simply to touch base with the BIA with respect to some of the issues that have been happening. With respect to the arsons, as late as today, the chief and I have been communicating back and forth, as well as with Staff Sergeant Hede, and my question was pretty blunt. Is this a trend, or is this in fact a coincidence with respect to what's happened in Wainfleet, as well as what's happening in the city now? And I'll ask the chief to respond to that. Chief Cartwright.
Your Worship, members of council, we're not alone with the arson problem in the region of Niagara. Obviously, over the last number of months, Mike and I sat down today and did a brief, quick review of what we've had in the last about 11 months. We've had 7 arsons in the municipality. Welland's had a number of arsons involving large buildings. Wainfleet's had the latest one, which I believe happened Thursday, I believe is when it occurred. We certainly have a problem in the region, and if you recall just recently, the Fire Marshal's Office, Niagara Regional Police, and the fire services in Niagara signed a memorandum of agreement as to how these things would be dealt with. And that process has been working relatively well, although we're still getting the odd bump in the road, but it is working well. We have concerns in our community, and a number of years ago, the mayor will certainly remember, we had another rash of arsons that seemed to occur, and we overcame those with the public assisting us in a lot of ways. We're asking that the public be very diligent with regards to securing their properties. In fact, tomorrow I've organized a meeting of a number of staff members in the city to deal with the proper boarding up and maintaining the buildings being boarded up that require that type of service. So we're going to be meeting tomorrow at 2 o'clock, our staff are, and we're going to be discussing various options that are available to us out there, including a stricter enforcement of the fire code. Obviously, with the stricter enforcement of the fire code comes manpower and tying up people in court actions and things of that nature, but we're going to come up with a process that will help us deal with that in some fashion. But certainly, recently, within this last couple of weeks, we've had 2 arsons, both on King Street, both confirmed arsons, and one of them had to do with a building that wasn't secured, and the other one was a building, part of a duplex that had been left open. So the people have to step up and assist us in trying to secure their properties as best they can. And if they suspect anything, they hear anything that would be beneficial to ourselves or the police in particular, Crime Stoppers is available. Contact Niagara Regional Police. I'm sure they'd be very interested in hearing from you with regards to what help and assistance you might be able to provide. It can be done secretively through Crime Stoppers, but nonetheless, we need people to step up. I agree with what the mayor said. The police can't be everywhere all the time. They certainly try to do the job as best they can. And to the BIA, we had indicated last fall when we had that issue in the fall of the year in downtown that we would be more than willing to sit with the BIA and try and discuss some options if we can assist you in any way with that.
Thank you, Chief. Any further questions or comments on that issue? The one thing I do want to caution council, more importantly I want to caution members of the public on, is not to broad brush any challenges in our community or any problems that we're having in our community with the youth. Quite frankly, it's not always the youth that are causing some of these problems, and I know that for a fact. You know, I see where we have some challenges on West Street with some of the skateboarders and some of the trick bikers, and quite frankly, they're just looking for a spot to do some of that stuff, and there are some bad apples. But all in all, and I have to say with being very much involved with Councillor Doucette with the Mayor's Youth Council, as well as very much involved with youth in general throughout the community, and I'm sure Councillor Steele can allude to this as well with his involvement with the youth. We've got some pretty good youth out there in this community. We're quite blessed. And so, you know, out of the, it's like the old saying goes, you know, the 10% sometimes gives the 90% the bad name. And I think that's the case here. But albeit, you know, we do have to keep an eye on that 10% and others that may be our age that are causing some of those challenges as well. So I agree with the chief. You know, for those members of the public that that are driving, walking, or riding around, please take that extra look and ensure that you can be the extra eyes that may stop some of those challenges from happening in this community, especially as it relates to some of the arsons that we have happening throughout the community in the past few weeks. Chief Cartwright?
Your Worship, I can just add one more thing. Smoke alarms. It seems that every day in the newspapers there's fire deaths in the province of Ontario. We certainly have had our issues in this community with regards to severe fires. We're asking to people to make sure they have working smoke alarms on all levels of their homes. It still is a major issue. We're still in the area of 60% of non-compliance. Again, we're going to revisit over the next couple of months, and Council has been given a heads up. You're going to see a report come to Council with some recommendations as to maybe deal with this in a different fashion. We've tried giving them away. We go to their homes, we put them on ceilings for the people, we install them. It still isn't helping us to the point where just recently some of the smoke alarms that we had installed have been disabled. It was a rental unit. You need to keep your smoke alarms working in your community, or in this community, and in particular in your homes. If you have an issue with an owner, contact the fire department. We'll deal with it quickly and severely. We need the assistance of the public with regards to smoke alarms.
Thanks, Chief. With no further questions or comments on that issue, Councillor Elliott, you're fine? Okay, any further new business? I have, was it you, Councillor Steele, I had? No. Councillor Kenny, then Councillor DeMarais. Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Transit Media Committee met this week on Wednesday, and we received at our meeting a nice news release from the region in regards to the Niagara Region Transit, stating that starting May the 1st, the Niagara Region Transit will have a new fare structure and will begin offering monthly passes and a 10-ride card, all aimed at making Niagara Region Transit a convenient, affordable commuting option for Niagara residents. Also with that, it says, with the Niagara Region Transit monthly pass, riders will get the benefit of both inter-municipal travel on the Niagara Region Transit, as well as local travel on St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, and the Welland transit system. Nothing mentioned about our transit system. Goes on to say that, you know, local riders will be able to use this pass in their municipality, and it will be good for the unlimited rides within the calendar month. The Transit Committee kind of took a little bit of offense to that because the same offer was not being offered to the residents or the people using the bus in the Port Colborne transit system. And with that, Your Worship, I'd like to ask for leave of council to bring up a motion from the Niagara Transit Advisory Committee. If I could ask for a motion, leave of council just to bring up this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. And before you bring that up, I'd like to have Mr. Sinez comment on it.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. It is a media release that we did find out just last week that the region was looking at putting out the passes and including just the three major transit systems, and essentially Port Colborne and myself and Mr. Huppanen, who sits on was the staff members for our Transit Advisory Committee, in which we have been involved in the ongoing process of the regional transit coming in place and so on, but unfortunately we were unaware of that they were taking this place, and we weren't involved in any of the meetings that did take place with regard to the passes and the rate structure or fare structure that would be there. And at our advisory committee meeting, I know that it was discussed as to that why Port Colborne and even Fort Erie was not involved, because they also have their own transit system, as to whether or not, because I think what's going to happen is we're going to have residents in Port Colborne that are going to that may purchase the regional pass and are going to be looking to possibly ride our local transit with that regional pass, and at this point in time we don't get any fare structure in that, and we'd be having to say no, it's not included, because the region didn't really propose it for Port Colborne. So it's something that we discussed, and I know we worked on a resolution that Councillor Kenny can bring forward to Council.
Thank you, Peter. Members of council, I'm going to look for a motion for leave. Moved by Councillor Desmarais, seconded by Councillor Steele. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I have to leave this as Mr. Sinez says, this is the word smithery of staff. So, because I certainly could not think of all this stuff. But anyway, whereas it was brought to the attention of the Port Colborne Transit Advisory Committee on April 18th that the Niagara Regional Transit will be advertised and they will be offering monthly passes and 10 ride cards starting on May the 1st for riders using intermunicipal travel on the regional transit as well as local travel on the St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, and Welland transit systems. Whereas the Port Colborne Transit Advisory Committee received a draft copy of the Niagara Region's media release, which states these monthly passes and 10 ride cards will be accepted on local buses, not including Port Colborne Transit. Whereas the committee feels that this may cause concern to the Port Colborne Transit riders, and whereas the committee was advised that city staff have not been approached or involved in discussions with the Niagara Region regarding a fare sharing structure for the proposed monthly passes and 10 ride cards, if being proposed, it should be extended to the Port Colborne Transit. Whereas the committee or city staff was not advised by the region of their proposal to offer regional passes to be accepted on local buses, thus an appropriate fare sharing structure between the city and the region of Niagara for monthly passes and 10 ride cards. Now, therefore, the committee recommends the following: that the Council of the City of Port Colborne requests that the Niagara Region Transit Pilot Project Coordination Committee arrange a meeting with city staff to discuss a fare sharing structure for the proposed monthly passes and the 10 ride cards prior to the project commencement on May the 1st, and that if a fare sharing structure between city staff and the Niagara Region Transit Pilot Project Coordination Committee cannot be negotiated, then advertisements will be displayed on the city buses and on the city's website stating that the Niagara Region Transit monthly passes and 10 ride cards are not accepted on the Port Colborne funded buses.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny.
Thank you.
Have a seconder to that, please. Councillor Steele. Are there any questions or comments to that? Peter, any questions or comments? With that, Councillor Bodner.
Mr. Mayor, I take it that'll go to the mayor. Myself and Councillor Berg sit on the Transportation Strategy Steering Committee at the region. And I kind of missed that when that came through there, thinking that Port was, at least talked to about that. So I would think, Mr. Mayor, that would come to that committee, this request, and then go on from there. So,
well, if I may,
sure.
I think council best recognize what the budgetary impact may be on this resolution. However, I respect Councillor Kenny's motion. It will go to council, to regional council, and will be taken as an action item correspondence, and more than likely will be referred to the Transportation Strategy Steering Committee, and then therefore Public Works with a recommendation back to regional council. But there will be a budgetary impact, so I want council to have that heads up. That more than likely, if it's looked at upon as a direction regional council wants to take, there will be a budgetary impact on it. So I just want you to be surprised when that comes back. But to answer your question, Councillor, yes, absolutely. It'll end up at that steering committee and then make its way back up, unless we fast track it through regional council. So my intent, Peter, is to sit down with you tomorrow, see what those impacts are, and quite frankly, Councillor Bodner, fast track it through, so that therefore, as Councillor Kenny stated, if in fact it's the wish of this council to have that service available to our residents, then we can have it done sooner rather than later. Okay? Good. Members of council, all those in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. Thank you. Are there any further councillors' items, councillors' issues? I have Councillor Desmarais and then Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two issues. One, on Friday, I was happy to attend the East Village cleanup. This is year 6 of the Earth Day cleanup that we do. It was a resounding success. The bin was overflowing. Unfortunately, we'll have to go to 2 bins next year. It was amazing because neighbors came out and cleaned their yards and brought that as well. So it was more than just our regular cleanup. We were able to get rid of so much more. I want to also thank Port Cares. They hosted the event, did most of the work on it. The EVAC committee was, all we had to do was just overlook everything, and RMC for the bins, the battery recycling, metal recycling, and electronics recycling that we did this year. So there will be money coming back to the committee to be funneled yet back into the community. So it was a great success, and thank everybody who participated. Just a really great day. My other issue is the East Village Park again, Victoria Playground. We would like to know if it would be possible, and this would be through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ron Hansen. Ron, you and I did speak about this, and I said I would be bringing it to council. We'd like to know if it would be possible to take the fencing along Welland Street and Ferris Street and just remove it. I know that it is slated for replacement, but the community doesn't really want it replaced. We couldn't find a reason that it should get replaced. With that fencing, it gives the park an inner city look, but nobody really wants that. We understand the need for fencing along the abutting properties for those homeowners, but along the street, it's really not necessary, and we'd just like to see that removed. So if Mr. Hansen could let us know if that could happen.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'd like to review it with the park staff. I don't think there's a problem with that. We've done it at several of the other parks that I can think of in the last couple of years. So we'll get back to you right away with a recommendation on that, if you like.
Thank you, Mr. Hansen. Councillor? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Bodner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wonder if I might be able to get council's support on something that I'm going to present to Mr. Hansen to look at, and that's the speed limits on Kalali Street East. Years ago, I think there was 4 of us on this council that we reduced the speed limit to 40 kilometers an hour by the school. I wondered whether that's a major thoroughfare, probably one of the widest streets in Port Colborne, if not the widest, and I sure see a lot of people pulled over by the police in that 40 kilometer an hour zone when there isn't school on even, or after school hours. I know why we did it at the time, it was for school, but I wonder whether we could put flashing lights there that could be turned on by, for lack of a better, I guess the crossing guard at school hours when she's there. And then when they're flashing it's 40, but besides that it's 50, and that whole street, which is a major thoroughfare, is 40, and Bell Street for most of it I believe is 50, and so we got a thoroughfare that people may not want to use because it's it's I just there's safety issues and everything we've got to take into account, but I wonder whether council might support looking at those speed limits through there and see what our options are.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Engineering would be pleased to bring a report back on that, time permitting. We need to look at the current bylaw. It's been in place for quite a number of years, and make a recommendation. The only consideration there is going to be the school zone, as Councillor Bodner has pointed out. There has to be an obvious reduction from the St. Therese School, but the remainder of that I think could probably be increased to 50 kph as the original condition. So we'd be happy to bring a report back on that.
Thank you, Mr. Hansen. Members of council, I don't think I'm going to require a motion for this, if I can just get consensus based on your nods. That's fine. Everybody's good with that? Okay. Thank you, Councillor Bodner. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Mr. Hansen. I mean, Humberston's torn down. I mean, that is slow going through there. With Highway 3 and Kalali being the 2 main drags that come in from the 40 area side of town, I think at least if it's 40 by the school, fine. But once you go past, I mean, it's brutal going through there, trying to stay at 40. Try to drive 40, honest to God. Try to drive 40 from St. Therese to out towards Weaver Road. It's brutal. So, I mean, that to me, well, yeah.
It's true. Vehicles idle faster than that.
That's right. So, if we could look at a higher speed all the way from there to down towards White Road prior to it merging on with Highway 3, I think a great idea from Councillor Bodner.
So, Council's all right with that? Mr. Hansen, you're fine? Yes. Any questions? Clarification? Good. Further new business, councilors' items? With none, members of staff, any updates? Mr. Heil.
Your Worship, just a quick report. We've spoken briefly, and the clerk is going to be bringing a report at the next meeting in respect of these things and what we're doing. The clerk and IT have been working very closely to try to produce a more streamlined, efficient agenda. Right now, you can see on the screens what we've been doing, and it's one document. I reported this morning or Friday that 35 of these have been distributed. Anybody can go on the website right now and request a registration, and every time there's an agenda, complete with all reports, uncut, everything fully, it'll get emailed to them, so they can get a full copy. We've had a couple of these now on trial, and again, the clerk can bring a report about the savings and things on it. We do have one for every member of council, and we can issue shortly. They've been set up. It has a 3G, so you'll be in constant contact with the office. As well, you can also be in constant contact with your email for your constituents, and all the things that you can get in these, and there is a net savings in the taxpayers. Right now we're producing anywhere from 10 to 12,000 photocopies every 2 weeks for distribution, and we would eliminate that, which eliminates the trees that we cut down, the chemicals that have to be produced for the photocopier, the electricity, and all the time that there has to go in. And the clerk has been carefully orchestrating the redevelopment of the agenda so that it well flows. We can't have any hiccups in this at all, and I'm really pleased with how she's been handling it with Jim and Jamie and IT. It seems to be going well. It's not to say there won't be a couple of glitches here. You never know. But I'm really impressed. It's going very well. And I just wanted to bring that up to you. Right now we have iPads for you, for your email, and if you could contact Jamie, because your email address has to go into it. You have a password, and if you could find time to contact Jamie, and then we'll do some brief training with it. It's pretty easy, and I know Councillor Doucette has been using it, and the mayor has been using it, and it's the same kind of a setup as the mayor has with a small keyboard. You will find it to be very advantageous and very usable. And there's a couple other things that we can talk about. I know some of you may want the odd piece of paper, and you can air print with these things to an $80 printer that you may want to pick up yourself if you want to do some air printing. There are some tremendous financial advantages. The economic benefits are amazing. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. We have been working diligently, and the clerk will be further reporting on all of that at the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. Any questions or comments? Councillor Doucette?
Just a straightforward comment. I believe everyone is going to love having this. Not only does it save the paper, it saves you time, and I'll tell you, once you've used it without paper, and that's the critical thing. I know when I started using this, the girls downstairs wanted to make sure that I had everything, so they wanted to give me the paper plus this, and I told them no. Once you get used to using this without the paper, it goes a lot faster. And if anyone needs any help with any of it, let me know. I've been toying with it for about 2.5 months, and I'll tell you, it's quick, fast. You can do all kinds of things with it all at the same time. Unbelievable.
Thank you, Councillor. Further questions or comments? With none, we'll now move on to our minutes. We do have a few sets of minutes here, members. I'll be looking for a mover and seconder. First is the minutes of the 10th meeting regular of Committee of the Whole, April 10th, 2012, as well as I have the minutes. Members of Council, if I can have your attention, please. I also have the minutes of the 11th meeting special Committee of the Whole, dated April 16th, 2012. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bodner, Councillor Elliott, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Members, we're now going to move on to the consideration of the items requiring a separate discussion, the items that you lifted. We'll start off with item 1. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. That the Department of Community and Corporate Services, Community Service Division, report number 2012-13, subject proposal for programming and recreation services for the cold side of the Vale Health and Wellness Center be approved, recommending that the proposal of Brian Elliott for the programming services be approved and that the appropriate bylaw be passed to authorize a one-year contract.
Thank you, Councillor. Whoever seconded that, please. Councillor Doucette. Questions or comments? Councillor Kenny.
Thank you once again, Your Worship. When I look at first of all, I can say I'm really happy that it's a Port Colborne individual. The information of his involvement in Port Colborne from the time he was a kid, and what that was really refreshing to see. I just want to ask one question. I guess it's the bold 18, page 18, when it talks about the Sports Center Design and Management Corporation, who originally was going to hire Mr. Elliott anyway through their business. So I guess you could say we've cut out the middleman, I guess. I'm happy it's a Port Colborne person, but I guess I didn't like the way it was done. I kind of say to myself, well, if they were going to hire him, I know it says here that they didn't have time because they were busy with managing several different facilities. But I was concerned, I guess, that it didn't give a good, clean line, I guess, to me of how that proposal went. And in there, on page 15, it says that their proposed budget would see the city actually reduce its net subsidy levels by approximately $143,722, and that they would bear the cost and expenditure of the revenue collection. I just wondered how this new proposal, I guess, matches that or is better than that. If someone could help me out, that would be great.
Mr. Howe.
To explain, Your Worship, in the report in 2010 that we produced, SCDM said you'd let us run the building, staff, everything, and we'll do this for you. That wasn't in the cards at the time, and SCDM did not respond. Everyone expected them to do a bid, and they would have staffed the building and done everything themselves, including some of their, I'm going to say some of their rates. Although they were talking Port Colborne rates, they had a number of issues that would had to have been negotiated at the time. When the RFP went out in 2010 or 11, when it first went out in 11, they didn't bid, which surprised us. We thought they were, because they were at the table even, assisting in talking about some of the design to try to maximize the space. In the 2010 report, and members of council will recall, Your Worship, they were actually made a bit of a presentation in that long report that this thing could be used, providing it's used. You know, no vacant hours, and to maximize the time, and that's what their company did, and that's how they can profitably operate several of the large facilities in Ontario. And that this was not going to be an exception. They had some issues because it wasn't going to be, it wasn't going to be downtown Kitchener, Waterloo, or downtown Toronto, but they said they could try and make it work. Now, when this came up, they elected not to bid, which surprised all of us. So when we were looking at this, and we came to council in the spring, and the reason this report is back here is we had approval from council for a total levy in 2011 of $42,000. And that $42,000, we were looking at, because no one bid on it, probably bringing a staff member on. One full-time equivalent with the benefits and all the stuff around that. We had a discussion and thought it's better if we could handle this with an independent contract who can devote the time necessary, because someday it might be 15 hours, someday it might be 20, someone who could work, or a company that could work as broadly as possible to try to get this thing started. And we decided that we would go out and seek, at least try again, another proposal. Look for proposals. We sought an RFP, and there was one application. That's this one. And this application is noted in the report, and you can see part of it is redacted in the proposal dealing with the dollars and cents. If council does not approve this, we did not want to release the dollars and cents if council wanted us to go out and try it again. The report notes, and I'm telling you right now, that it is less than the amount that was actually budgeted for in the budget, or provided for. That is the proposal at this point in time. And you'll note also in the report that we will be further negotiating for some kind of an incentive, so that every time there's a dollar made, somehow through increased revenues, maybe there's a contribution back to the programmer to try to get every dollar that we can possibly get. I shouldn't say every dollar, that we can get every hour used in the facilities that are currently owned by the city, to maximize the use of the facilities and provide the greatest amount of recreation, leisure, health, and sports services that we can possibly offer. That's the premise behind this whole process. We're fortunate that I think that we have, and you can read the proposal, it is very comprehensive, and I'm very pleased to announce that we looked at it inside, we've checked references, we've had some interviews. When you only have one proposal, you're always a little skeptical. We're satisfied right now that we believe that this choice is a good choice, and if there are any issues anywhere along the line, we simply pull the plug and go back to Plan B. And that's where it sits right now, and we offer the report for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Worship. So the actual contract, it has not been finalized for the amount of hours that will be spent, and the total, I guess, monthly monies that will be spent to this person. That has not been finalized.
Mr. Howe.
Your Worship, there's a bid here that would be finalized if council approves this, and it is less than council's already approved.
Okay.
Councillor?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Heil answered one of the questions I had about why isn't there a dollar figure in there, and that's reasonable until we approve it. Then, then that'll pop up. It is a one-year contract. I had 9 months floating around my head, but.
Mr. Howe.
Your Worship, we're proposing 1 year, which would be the balance of this year, approximately 9 months, and perhaps 3 into the next.
Councillor. That's fine. Go ahead.
How are we going to mitigate, for lack of a better word, I use disputes, but certainly, we had concern from one of our large ice users whether they could, work with this individual. How are we going to make sure that that's a smooth transition? And, I guess that'll come out in the contract or something, but, I would assume that there is some way that can be mitigated. And what happens, although I have all the confidence in Mr. Elliott, what happens if this crashes and burns halfway through? How is is the contract worded some way that, that there's a way to switch gears? But I know smarter people than me will figure that out, but I just wanted to say that to get some comfort level to be assured of that.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Howe.
Your Worship, part of signing this contract, and for that matter, any contract with the City of Port Colborne, is an absolute allegiance to and subscription to 5C service. 5C service is very specific. If there's any violation of 5C service, respect for every person that the individual comes in contact with, staff, members of council, the public, full consideration of equity and fairness. If there's any violation of that, the plug gets pulled. And that's all there's to it. This forms a key component for full evaluation to ensure that we treat every user fairly and every customer fairly, equitably, and with all due respect. I have already spoken to Mr. Elliott about that in some, and he's aware of the requirements of this contract. They will be working for the municipality if it's approved, and it is absolutely imperative that every citizen, everyone is treated with dignity, with respect, and given the importance of the individual's rights and obligations with the city, that we can possibly afford them as loyal citizens, as loyal servants to each other, to council, and to the citizens of the city of Port Colborne.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. When we originally spoke about this individual, whoever it was going to do the cold side plus other programming within the city. I look at the proposal and it talks about the other areas, Rosalon, Nickel Beach, Sugarloaf, Marina, and so on and so forth. Is this individual going to be working on those areas as well, or is it strictly the cold side of Valley?
Mr. Howell.
Your Worship, we hope that this position programs everything that we could possibly imagine, every facility that we own. The primary focus is the Health and Wellness Center. That facility has to get every hour booked, not just for ice, but for all the time when it's empty, when it's vacant and there is no ice in there, whether we got shows or lacrosse. I don't know, whatever has to be done. All of those things need to be put in place, and the focus in the proposal is on the Health and Wellness Center, but giving full consideration to everything else that the city owns and operates to try to maximize recreation, leisure health, and wellness services and provisions for the youngest to the oldest.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of concerns that I had. I guess one, the biggest concern is where it states the incentives. I don't think I remember reading anywhere in our budget process where we're going to incent back to any proponent any revenue sharing. When we looked at the SCDM model, it said that they were going to run the facility and there was going to be a $60,000 management fee, but now basically we're paying this proponent money to run our facility and program it. Why would we give anybody any extra money when we're already paying him? When you're looking at incentives, when you say any revenue, extra revenue generated, define revenue. Is it any revenue on top of where we are? It's stated in the report of 2010, your report, that we needed to generate conservatively an extra $260,000 to break even, to mitigate the subsidy at just short of $700,000. So is the incentive going to be outside of the $260,000 that we're going to have to generate new revenue to keep the subsidy where it is? Is that where the incentive starts?
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Howell.
There's a lot of questions there, and I can give you a lot of answers. SCDM proposal in 2010 was based on what they were doing in Burlington and Kitchener and Toronto. Their proposal was, you give us 60, we're going to reduce your subsidy. But they wanted full and carte blanche operation. That's not the case here. We're operating this facility. It is a facility owned by the City of Port Colborne. It is staffed by the City of Port Colborne, and our current programmer in the warm side is going to be the YMCA under contract. The cold side, and I'll call it the cold side, the cold side and other facilities that we have will be programmed to maximum. What we're suggesting in the report is that if we can find ways to develop and improve and enhance programming in the city of Port Colborne, and beyond what we could imagine at this point, that there may be opportunities as incentive or performance to provide some, I'm going to say perhaps some sharing, and I'm not talking on a 50-50 basis. It has not been approved by this council, and it still has to come back here. We're going to be talking with Mr. Elliott to try to see if we can't come up with, maybe there's something that we can do more. Maybe can bring, I don't know, what's the ladies' hockey?
Clarkson Cup.
The Clarkson Cup here. Maybe there's an opportunity here in some of that stuff that we can fill more ice and put more bums in the seats in the arena and in other facilities. If there is, we're going to see if we can't explore those so that we can take what we've got and maximize it. And if there's an incentive, if we can offer an incentive to do that rather than just straight program, we're going to look at it. We'll bring it back to council. It's not going to be etched in stone. It's still a council decision.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. And may I state that that's not part of this report with respect to the incentive. It's mentioned in the report. However, it's not part of the report with respect to your moving forward with any direction. That, as Mr. Howell alluded to, will come back to council with respect to any incentives that can be negotiated. But at this time, that's a debate for a different day. Councilor Elliott?
Okay, because it is part of the report because it says it in the report. And that's, I mean, if you can split hairs.
Councilor Elliott, it's not part of the report. It's mentioned in the report, but there's no recommendation attached to it. It just recommended that there may be, in fact, a report coming back to council that might include an incentive. But the incentive is not part of the report. We're not voting on an incentive. Okay, that is a discussion and a debate for a different day.
So that's a completely separate item.
Well, I'll quote the report. Basically, it says, we will offer this contract for programming with an incentive whereby the city will share its savings with the programmer as more programs are developed. It also states that it's subject to council approval. So that's not the approval that we're looking at or negotiating or talking about here. So once again, that is a discussion for a different day once that report comes before council for its approval.
Okay.
Right now, it's just being discussed. That is a possibility that the CAO may come before council with an incentive package attached to a report.
Okay, I must have read it wrong because it says we will offer this contract for programming with an incentive. So it sounds like we're offering the contract with the incentive.
If I can explain this once again, and if you go back a sentence, moreover, to ensure continued expansion of programs for our citizens, and as you can see in the third line.
Yep. And subject to council approval.
Right. We will offer this contract for programming. So that's not the subject of this report. Okay, the subject of this report is everything else that's mentioned in the report, but the incentive program is not subject to this report. So once again, that discussion and debate is when that report would come, when it is subject to the report. That being the incentive and the conditions attached to the report whereby the incentive will be offered to the proponent.
I just want to make sure because I want to know, I want to see some kind of financial forecast of where we're going to be. I mean, the proposal is high on generalities. It's a broad-based proposal. It starts to talk about the marina and Roselawn and the museum and the library and everything. Are we blurring lines? Where does the programmer have authority over the museum in as much as there's a curator and I'm just putting it out there because I'm having trouble trying to figure out exactly where does it go. The proposal is basically all encompassing across the whole city, and yet I would rather see the focus on the arena, obviously, to get it programmed. But this is such a broad-based document. It says, you know, for parks and everything, and it's almost like this is going to be too much for one person, and I'd hate to see it grow legs and all of a sudden it become 2 or 3. And I just want to know, are we hiring for the programmer for the cold side of the Health and Wellness Center, which definitely we need, and where does it end?
Mr. Howe.
Your Worship, for purposes of the minutes, the report is currently approving. The report is recommending, we're asking Council to approve the hiring of an individual who's going to focus primarily on the Health and Wellness Center. If there are other programs that can be developed in other facilities, not on behalf of, there will be no authority for the programmer to walk into the museum, certainly not the library, nor in Roselawn. But if there are programs that can be offered by the programmer here, in consultation, in conjunction with the main focus of the Health and Wellness Center, then we're going to pursue that. But it won't be, it's not going to be a primary focus. This report says, and it is focused on getting that Health and Wellness Center operating 24 hours a day or 12 hours a day or whatever we can do. That is the focus, and that is the primary submission here. Recognizing that there may be an opportunity to do something with the museum. There might be. In which case we would pursue that. Right now, it is the Health and Wellness Center, and that's the funding that's available.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. And if I can just add to that, this report's very focused on the cold side, as Mr. Howe alluded to. Any further opportunities that may exist, whether it be the marina, whether it be Roselawn, whether it be the beach, the new lands that we're going to take over beside the beach, the museum, the library, would be understood as a benefit to the city. But most importantly, it would also be understood that it would be back to council for council approval, subject to a further report. So whether it's an added service, added value, or whether it's an adjustment of the contract that would include incentives, as it states here, it would be subject to council approval, whereby the CAO, the Director of Community and Corporate Services, and of course the Manager of Community Services would all author a report that would include those particulars attached to it, both in added value services as well as any incentive packages that would be then up for council consideration as per the report that would be presented to you. Further questions or comments? Councillor Elliott. No. Further questions or comments? Members of council? Mr. Hell, any further comments or questions? No. Mr. Makins, Mr. Sinez. With none, council's pleasure to the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 3. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Department of Community and Corporate Services Division report number 2012-15, subject proposed 2012 water and wastewater rates be approved, recommending that the council set the 2012 water and wastewater rates as follows. Water usage, $0.095 per cubic meter. Water fixed rate, $259.44. It's an annual fixed rate. Wastewater usage rate, 1.133 per cubic meter, and the wastewater fixed charge at $298.58. That the 2012 water and wastewater budgets are presented and approved. That the appropriate water and wastewater rates bylaws are presented to council for approval. That the 2011 water and wastewater surplus be transferred to the appropriate reserves as outlined in this report.
Thank you, Councillor. Have a second to that recommendation, please. Councillor Elliott. Questions or comments? Councillor Kenny.
Thank you once again, Your Worship. Just going to the front page of the report, just at the very bottom, page 63, the bold 63. It says it was recommended in the 2012 to increase staff, which is a provincial mandate that we have to abide by because of the Ontario Safe Drinking Water Act, and that we needed to add a locate technician and 3 water distribution operators. And we approved, this is in the 2011 budget, we approved 1 technician and 1 operator. I don't know who I should ask. I don't think that happened. I don't think in 2011 we did that. As owner, Councillor Steele and I are council appointees as owners of our water system, and I don't think that that happened. At our last meeting, I know that we, I think in March of this year, 2012, we hired a technician and 1 water distribution officer. I think we hired them just last month, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Hansen, can you help me out? I don't think anybody was hired in 2011, so I think...
Let me ask Mr. Hansen the question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Hansen?
To you, Mr. Mayor. You're correct, Councillor Kenny. In the 2011 budget, there was approval to hire a certified water operator and a locate technician. Unfortunately, they didn't come on board until March of 2012, but that was from the allocation from the 2011 budget.
Okay.
And there's also a request in this budget for 1 additional certified operator in the 2012 budget.
Councillor?
Which we need, mandated, so we need that. So Ron, again, you know, how we always argue about this water thing. Okay. When I looked at comparisons with other municipalities, I see we're the 2nd highest in a water fixed rate. We're the 2nd highest in the sewer fixed rate. With our water usage, the amount of 1.09, we're now the 2nd lowest. And the sewer usage, we're middle of the road. We're compared to other municipalities in the Niagara region. And then I go over to page 67. That tells me we did great in 2011, and that the water system in 2011 has accumulated a surplus of $86,676. And the wastewater system in 2011 had a surplus of $322,551. Both surpluses from 2011, and yet we're still increasing, like that's a lot of money, we're still increasing our wastewater, the sewage part. We've lowered our water, which is great because we had a surplus, so obviously we should lower it. And we had a surplus in our wastewater, but I don't see that going down. We're still the 2nd highest. Anyway.
Thank you, Councillor. If I can ask Mr. Sinez to comment on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're correct. That's what's happened, but there are reasons for that. And essentially, there is a surplus in the water count, and essentially that was because of the fact that we didn't hire those 2 people in 2011. We now hired them in 2012, so those dollars are required in the budget, so it will be there. That's
just to clarify, that nets out though. So basically, you didn't put the 2012 in the budget because you already had it from 2011.
The 2 staff people are already in the 2011 budget. It carries forward into the 2012 budget. The fact that we had a surplus in 2011 was because we did not hire those individuals in 2011. And there was in the water budget, there was other things that were either over or under type of thing, netted out to that $86,000. We have been able to reduce the water budget to a certain degree, and there's a couple reasons for that. One being, originally in 2011, we did allocate the 2 staff that we hired in 2011 their full salaries to the water budget. Once we got into the 2012 budget, those 2 staff are going to be, by their job description, doing part work in the sewer budget and part in the water budget. So essentially I had to transfer some of those salaries and wages from the water to the sewer, and that's why you're seeing the sewer budget, the wastewater budget going up a bit, because we had to transfer those salaries over to that particular budget, and then you see the water budget coming down a bit. The wastewater budget had a large surplus this year, but that large surplus if you look at the regional, we have a regional wastewater reconciliation that happens each year. This is the first year of this new reconciliation, comparing the actual usage to what was budgeted. And what happens is on the wastewater side, where the region uses a 3-year average of determining what that budget amount is going to be, it is charged as a fixed cost, at 100% fixed cost to the municipality. In 2011, our flows were considerably higher, and therefore on the reconciliation, we actually owe the region $384,000 over and above our last year's budget. So the $322,000, that surplus really is the revenues that we've collected that are now going to, we're requesting council put that into the reserve because we have to pay the region $384,000 in our 2013 budget. So they are surplus this year, but they're not really surplus because we essentially are paying the region for the actual flows on reconciliation. The fact that the region charges each municipality a fixed amount, it provides each municipality a fixed amount for budget purposes, but a year later on that reconciliation, we can either be having a deficit in paying the region, or we could be getting money back from the region. And again, it all depends on the flows on an individual year basis. When you average 3 years out, you're not actually paying for your actual flows for that year because it's based on an estimate. So the fact that we have that particular surplus in 2011, when you really look at the reconciliation part, we did not have a surplus. We actually had a deficit.
I love
so,
you. I love
talking around circles on you.
But actually, if I may, Peter,
yeah.
you know, actually not talking around circles. Yeah. I think the fact of the matter is that the flows that were budgeted based on a 3-year average were not met. Basically, we used more than what we paid for. So therefore, and that's in the tune of $380,000. So the surplus that we've experienced last year, Councillor Kenny, you can relate to this because you fought for this for so many years, really acts as a rate stabilization reserve in some sense. Because some of those dollars, if not all of those dollars, will be utilized to cover that shortfall that we experienced based on the regional flows. Peter?
True. And it comes down to that the way the region budgets on estimates and the way the city budgets based on their estimates and fixed cost to the city, that's what we budget on. And again, it also depends on our water flows, because we bill based on our water flows. So as long as our water flows are at that consistent level, then we're collecting enough revenue in order to cover the reconciliation cost when the region actually a year later does that reconciliation and compares the actual flows and usage to what they actually billed us on. And that's the difference that we're seeing this year.
And if I may, Councillor Kenny, the fairness to that is it's strictly 100% user. And when we're overcharged, as we were last year, we receive that money back. When we're undercharged, obviously, we have to pay that money.
In 2010, we actually received some funds back. And that is part of the $322,000 of our surplus that we're now going to requesting council to approve to go into reserve so that we have those funds when we have to pay that in 2013 in our 2013 budget. If we didn't have that, then our rates would be going up again considerably.
And actually, if it wasn't for the charge with the storm, we would have had that money doubled because that was a big bill we had to pay last year as well.
Yes. And again, it depends on the season. You know, if you have a wet summer versus a dry summer, or not even the summer, the whole year. You know, January you get a lot of snow, you get infiltration happening. So there's a lot of different things that are affecting how our billings essentially are either paid for through the region and how we budget versus the revenues that we're collecting.
Thank you, Peter. Councillor Kenny?
Thank you, Peter, for that explanation. And really, it's not the wastewater amount I'd like to see that go in a reserve, because we'll probably, if we have a surplus in 2012 added to this, we'll probably pay for this deficit of 384, because that's not being billed to us until 2013, according to this report. So if we have this 2012 we put away in that stabilization, we have this money, which is almost that, 322,000, and if we have a surplus in 2012, that more than meet the reserve or the money that we need to pay the region for the wastewater. What I'm concerned about is the water, the amount of 86,676 going in a reserve for the bulk water station to be replaced at our new operations center. I consider those two separate entities, because bulk water is obviously for individuals who do not have access to the city water infrastructure lines and stuff. So I see that as a separate entity, and that should be kept separate from the monies that the ratepayers who get water and they pay back the infrastructure through the water, that should go in a surplus.
That's a good point.
That should, because bulk water to me is a separate entity. It does not belong in that. That water, you talk about rate stabilization, I would like to see that 86,676 stay in a rate the water stabilization. Okay, that's
just a question on that, Councillor Kenny, and you raise a very valid point. To Mr. Sinez, is the fact that the 86,676 was obviously accrued from the ratepayers, correct?
It's a combination. The whole rate structure includes both the three areas that we have metered, the residential. It also includes your commercial and industrial, and it also includes your bulk haulers. Because the bulk haulers, we do charge them for the water that they are using and distributing to the rural areas.
So it's all three.
It's all three. Okay. It's all part of it.
Councillor Kenny.
so. What portion? How much of that? So they're paying a part of the infrastructure. So the water lines that go to that, they're paying part of that. The water lines that go to that station?
Mr. Sinez?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, they're paying for both a usage rate and a fixed rate. Same as a residential homeowner.
The same
Actually, it's at a higher rate. The bulk water haulers pay at a higher rate because it's based on the pipe size, and so the fixed charge is higher than the residential.
Okay. Fair enough. I would still like that to stay in a rate stabilization fund. When we build the new operations center, that'll be part of the package for the operations center, the water station at the new operations center. And so I'd like to recommend that stay as a surplus in a rate stabilization fund. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Are you making that an amendment, or are you just making a statement? You're just making a statement? Okay. I have Councillor Bodner, then I have Councillor Steele, then I have Councillor Elliott.
I'd like to hear from Peter first, because he might answer my question.
Sure. Mr. Sinez.
Speaking of the rate stabilization fund for the water, we do have $360,000 in a water rate stabilization fund now. As far as the bulk water station that will be going for the west side, we don't have funds. We have a small amount of funds in the reserve for that. And basically what we want trying to do is build that reserve up so at the point in time in 2013 when we have to pay for that, we have the funds for it.
Thank you, Mr. Sinez. Councillor Bodner?
I think I'll agree with that. That was kind of the whole thing. Because it should come out of the water. It shouldn't go into the general taxpayer on the amount we're going to spend to build the whole complex. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Steele, then Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I do agree with that, Councillor, because sticking up for those that because as a former Ward 4 resident, we pay for sidewalks in our taxes, but we don't have sidewalks, so I think it's only fair. Well, it's true. Through you, Your Worship, to Mr. Hanson. Mr. Hanson, with regards to the ongoing works over the last number of years, specifically last year we replaced the large pipe up Catherine Street that goes to the water tower, and other water services within the community. Secondly, we've done on the sewer side of it, the CSO programs, Nickel Street, Arena, Ulmer, some of those are ongoing. When do we, I know some of these will be moving targets as we move these CSOs especially and main replacements, but specifically what we've done so far, the Arena project and then the Catherine Street project, one on sewer side, one on water side. When are we going to see the fruits of our labor as far as infiltration on the sewer side and loss of fresh water coming out of that huge pipe, because we knew there were some huge holes in it because of its age? When are we going to see the fruits of those labors as far as a reduction in cost of billing from the region where we're paying for lost water, and also now with infiltration of sumps, eaves troughs, downspouts, and things like that?
Mr. Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's a very good question. We were actually quite surprised to see that the wastewater flows had increased in 2011, given that the repairs that were done in the Arena area, especially, we found some substantial leaks in there, and those were repaired. And we don't know right now. We're doing some analysis on precipitation in 2011 and some other issues to do a complete analysis on the wastewater issue. In fact, it went up in 2011, which doesn't make a lot of sense given the other rates. So obviously there's something else happening out there, and we're going to provide some analysis and get back to council on that. The rolling average, we're hoping to see some decreases in the water loss issue over the next 2 or 3 years. We're not sure of what the direct impact is going to be and what the timetable for that would be. Obviously, when you fix a substantial leak like the Catherine Street, there should be a direct loss, but obviously other things are happening within the system. Maybe there's other leaks coming forward that we weren't aware of, or new leaks coming onto the system on the older part of the system. So the only thing I can say is we're going to continue to monitor that on a regular basis and try to get a real good handle on what these water losses are and why the wastewater is actually increasing. So we don't know if that's just a temporary aberration given precipitation or something else, or something that's going to drop dramatically with one more leak. So we'll just have to keep council advised on that.
Councillor?
Through you to Mr. Hanson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Steele. Councillor Elliott?
3 months think alike, because I was going to ask the same thing that Councillor Steele just asked.
Great.
Shooting, look at my notes again, eh, David?
Any further questions or comments from members of council? To the report, your pleasure. All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you, members. We'll now move on to item 8. Councillor Kenny.
That the Department of Planning and Development Report number 2012-27, subject contract renewal for realty services be approved, recommending 1, that the city enters into a contract agreement with Royal LePage attached hereto for the sale of 4044 Kalali Street West, the CMT lots, and a portion of the Humberston Shoe Park, and 2, that the city clerk be prepared the necessary bylaw for council's approval.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Do we have any? Councillor Bodner? Any questions or comments? Members? Just one heads up for members of council. I had talked to our realtor today. He expressed a concern with respect to the turnaround, the offers that we're receiving. So I mentioned to him, and Dan and I discussed this earlier this morning, if in fact we do have an offer that comes to the city, instead of waiting a month, in some cases, to bring it back to council, to then have the clerk execute the actual agreement, I'll be calling a special meeting of council. So that way the turnaround time is much quicker. We can call a simple special meeting of council, deal with those offers, because those lots are starting to move now. We can deal with it, and that way they can get building and get in the ground sooner rather than later. Daniel, anything to add to that? That's fine.
Mr. Mayor, just if you can let me know the date so I can then relay that back to the realtor. The date of the special meeting of the council.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well, under the procedural bylaw, we do need 24 hours. Although Ashley has recommended we drop that down to 12 hours.
Ashley who?
She actually wants to go the other way. So she informs me that the procedural bylaw does require 24 hours for public notice. so we can do it within that, obviously within that time span. Get it back to Dan, he can get it back to the client, we can get them in the ground sooner rather than later. Councillor Bodner?
Just probably should know this, but there isn't any other way to do that, eh? That has to come back to council. There isn't any blanket, something we could issue. It seems a little convoluted when we're trying to sell lots. People want to get at it, get it done. And
it does. Unfortunately, Councillor Bodner, under the Municipal Act, we're bound by a bylaw that has to be passed by council, has to be executed then therefore by the clerk and the mayor to sign off on it before it can actually move forward as a sale. We can't get around that. Okay. The best we can do is call a special meeting of council, give the 24-hour notice, come into the chamber, entertain the offer, and then go to bylaw. We can execute it then, that myself and the clerk can execute it, and they're off and running, they're in the ground. Madam Clerk, did you want to comment on that? Or did I cover it all? Mr. Howe?
The clerk has a really good handle on delegation, if you want to consider that, but it's not simple, and perhaps maybe the clerk, Mr. Mayor, may speak to, if you want to delegate to the CAO, for example, to proceed, you could, but there are some issues.
Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the direction of the Chief Administrative Officer, I was taking a look at delegation of authority today, and at this point in time, I'm not in a position to provide even a verbal recommendation to council about what the best procedure would be, but it would require some further investigation, I believe, but that may be an option.
Fair enough. Well, if we can look at that. Councillor Bodner?
I was just going to say, if we can look at that, it just, you know, if anything we can do to speed this up, if council's comfortable with what the recommendation may be, I think we should look at that. It just seems to be a better way to do business. And so.
Thank you, Councillor, and absolutely. I think for the most part, my understanding of the Municipal Act, unfortunately, although we can delegate the negotiation within obviously a certain amount of dollars, you know, if we're asking 60,000, do we 60 to 50 or whatever council feels is appropriate? Council has been very adamant that the lots go for 60, so there is no room. That's it. That's the cost of building those lots. That's what the cost of those lots are. Having said that, there still has to be, regardless of what delegation you give, there still has to be, from my understanding of the Municipal Act, the execution of the bylaw and the sign off of the bylaw. So I think what we can do is wait for the clerk to come back with any ideas she may discover, but I still think that bylaw still has to be executed by the mayor and the clerk. So, but we'll check in on it. Mr. Howe.
Your Worship, there was a minor delegation permitted during the lame duck period of council during the election where council was lame duck, where there wasn't sufficient members of council to make decision during that magic window, and council specifically had authorized us to proceed, the CAO to agree on purchase of sale, but set it very tight, 60,000, and that was it. No fluctuation. You accept more, but nothing less. And that's, there was, but the delegation was very, very pointed, very particular, and the legislation, as the clerk will advise you, requires very strict rules when you get into that kind of delegation. Council can't abrogate its responsibility.
But again, the real kicker here is that the bylaw can't be executed unless it's signed off by the clerk and mayor, and that's the challenge we're going to keep coming back to, is that because it's just an offer pending purchase or sale until it's executed. So that's where we have to really dig down on and see what the reality of what it states in the Municipal Act are. However, if we can now vote on the recommendation, members, all those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 12. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. That pursuant to Section 6.1.1 of Bylaw 4989/45/07, that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne authorize Search Shores to hold display fireworks events on the following dates: consecutive Saturday evenings from Saturday, June 16th to Saturday, September the 1st, that such approval be conditional on the issuance of a permit by the Fire Chief in compliance with Bylaw 4989/45/07 and payment of the applicable fees. that the following information be submitted to the Port Colborne Fire and Emergency Services for review a minimum of 2 weeks prior to the holding of the first event. A fireworks site plan included but not limited to separation distances to the public and vulnerable sites, location from where fireworks are being fired, fallout zone, and direction of firing. Information concerning the floating platform from which the fireworks are to be fired, including the platform size. Event description information, including the description of fireworks type, size, quantity, and including firing procedures, manuals or electric, emergency procedures, and traffic control plans. That Shirks and Shores be advised that as the authority having jurisdiction, Port Colborne Fire and Emergency Services will conduct spot site inspections and may revoke approval for any violation of the Ontario Fire Code or the Explosives Act prior or during any one of these scheduled events.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Do we have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Danch, questions or comments? Councillor Kenny.
Your Worship, I only pulled it for the councillor's conflict.
Thank you, Councillor. No further questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 14. Councillor Kenny, you're just a little busy little beaver tonight, aren't you?
I am. That the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne approve the request of the Port Colborne Lions Club to hold their 11th Walk for Dog Guides on Sunday, May 27th, 2012, as submitted, subject to the Lions Club providing the clerk with a certificate of insurance in the amount of $2 million minimum, showing the city as the additional insurer for the purposes of this event, and the notification of the emergency services that the event organizers comply with bylaw 4930/155/06, being a bylaw to provide the licensing, control, and regulation of dogs with regard to dogs being on a leash and the picking up and appropriate disposal of dog feces. That the event organizers be responsible for the issuing the observance and compliance with all relevant highway and traffic regulations. It says note the certificate of insurance has been filed with the city clerk.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Do we have a seconder to this motion, please? Councillor Danch, questions or comments?
Again, Your Worship, I only pulled it for Councillor Bodner's conflict.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. No further comments or questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to, that's it. Okay, let's move on to notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion? No notices of motion. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this portion of tonight's agenda. Councillor Bodner, Councillor Doucette, all those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to our council agenda. First off, Madam Clerk, are there any addendum items?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to note one minor housekeeping item, and that the bylaws listed on your agenda for this evening, there was a minor typographical error there. So when I read the bylaws out this evening, I'll be reading them in correct order.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Members of Council, if I can entertain a motion to confirm the agenda, please. Mover and seconder, Councillor Steele. Councillor Desmarais. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. Disclosures of interest. Councillor Bodner.
Items 12 and 14.
Councillor Elliott.
Item 8.
I do have one set of minutes here, the adoption of the minutes of the 13th meeting regular of council, dated April 10th, 2012. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Danch, Councillor Bodner, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. Items requiring a separate discussion. Councillor Steele. Item 12, 14, and 8.
Yep, I'll do that now.
Yes.
You're welcome, Councillor.
Councillor, can you rest?
Yeah, with item 8 for the conflict for Councillor Elliott, the Department of Planning and Development Report number 2012-27, subject contract renewal for realty services.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Kenny. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship. Item number 12, Shirks and Shores request for permission to hold weekly fireworks display events.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Desmarais. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Councillor Steele.
And again, for Councillor Bodner, the item 14, conflict, Port Colborne Lions Club Walk for Dog Guides, May the 27th, 2012.
Thank you, Councillor Steele. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Danch. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. The remainder of the items, mover and seconder, please. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Kenny, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you, members of council. I'll now move on to proclamations. I have 4 here, and I'm going to start off with the Multiple Sclerosis Society of Canada. And once again, I'll be looking for a mover and seconder. That whereas the Multiple Sclerosis Society of Canada's mission is to be a leader in finding the cause and the cure for multiple sclerosis. And whereas the MS Society of Canada, Niagara Peninsula Chapter of Hope's goal is to provide services to the over 1,000 people affected by MS here in the Niagara region and help them achieve the highest possible quality of life while living with the challenges of MS. And whereas the MS Society of Canada marks the month of May as MS Awareness Month to increase awareness about MS and the services of the MS Society and to engage supporters in the fight to end this debilitating disease. And whereas on May 30th, Niagara Falls and the Peace Bridge will be illuminated in the color red, and community members will be encouraged to wear red in recognition of World MS Day 2012. And whereas the events on May 30th are built around 1,000 Faces of MS concept, which puts people living with MS in Niagara at the heart of the Niagara Peninsula Chapter of Hope's campaign. Now therefore, I, Mayor Vincent Badaway, proclaim the month of May 2012 as Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Month here in the city of Port Colborne. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bodner, Councillor Kenny. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. I now have a proclamation for the Lakeshore Catholic Trade Week. That whereas the Council of the City of Port Colborne recognizes the importance of skilled, qualified trade persons as part of a healthy local and national economy. And whereas Council wishes to support the Lakeshore Catholic High School Technology Program in all its endeavors to produce skilled and safety-conscious trades workers. Now therefore, I, Mayor Vincent Badaway, proclaim the week of April 27th to May 11th, 2012 as Lakeshore Catholic Trade Week here in the city of Port Colborne. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kenny, Councillor Danch. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. The third proclamation this evening is that whereas Community Living Port Colborne Wainfleet has provided services to persons with intellectual disabilities and their families in the city of Port Colborne for the past 50 years. And whereas Community Living Port Colborne Wainfleet supports individuals as they develop the capacity to participate in all aspects of living in the community. And whereas Community Living Port Colborne Wainfleet works with the City of Port Colborne, volunteers, and other organizations to build a community of inclusion, equality, and respect, and celebrates the contribution of all our citizens. And whereas Community Living Awareness Month is a province-wide initiative created to celebrate the values of community living. Now therefore, I, Mayor Vincent Badaway, proclaim the month of May 2012 as Community Living Awareness Month here in the city of Port Colborne. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Doucette. Councillor Desmarais. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. The last proclamation is that whereas over the course of their lives, many Canadians will face severe weather, fire, floods, or other unforeseen events that may affect their quality of life. And whereas by understanding the risks inherent to where they live and work, and by taking actions to reduce those risks, Canadians can limit the extent to which an emergency may affect them. And whereas in the case of a community emergency, Canadians should be prepared to take care of themselves and their families for a minimum of 72 hours. And whereas this year's National Emergency Preparedness Week is May 6th to May 12th, 2012, with the theme of Learn the 3 Steps to Getting Prepared. Learn the 3 steps to getting prepared. Know the risks, make a plan, and get a kit. Now therefore, I, Mayor Vincent Badaway, proclaim the week of May 6th to May 12th, 2012 as National Emergency Preparedness Week here in the city of Port Colborne. And I urge all citizens to make a plan, prepare an emergency kit, and know what to do so that they and their families can be better prepared for an emergency situation. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kenny, Councillor Steele. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you, members. We'll now move on to the minutes of boards, commissions, and committees. I do have a set of minutes here of the Environmental Advisory Committee meeting dated March 7th, 2012. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kenny, Councillor Steele. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Are there any notices of motion, members? Madam Clerk, the introduction of the bylaws, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That the following bylaws be read a first, second, third time and finally passed. Bylaw 57803512 being a bylaw to amend noise bylaw 458811904. Bylaw 57813612 being a bylaw to authorize entering into a contract agreement with Brian Elliott for programming and recreation services for the cold side of the Valley Health and Wellness Center and other facilities. Bylaw 57823712 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 3424697 being a bylaw for the imposition and collection of sewage service rates and sewer rates. Bylaw 57833812 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 31512295, a bylaw to regulate the supply of water and to provide for the maintenance and management of the waterworks and for the imposition and collection of water rates. Bylaw 57843912 being a bylaw to require Port Colborne Hydro Inc. to change its reporting of financial statements to comply with public sector accounting standards. Bylaw 57854012 being a bylaw to authorize entering into an agreement of purchase and sale with Canada Lands Company regarding parts 2 through 6 on reference plan 59R13924. Bylaw 57864112 being a bylaw to authorize entering into an encroachment agreement regarding 78 Clarence Street, Port Colborne. And finally, bylaw 57874212 being a bylaw to authorize entering into an agreement with Royal DuPage Niagara Real Estate Center regarding the sale of 40 to 44 Kalali Street West, all remaining CMT school lots, and a portion of the Humberston Shoe Park.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bodner, Councillor Doucette. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Madam Clerk, the confirmatory bylaw, please.
That the following bylaw be read a first, second, third time and finally passed. Bylaw 57884312 being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its regular meeting of Council, April 23, 2012.
Thank you, Ashley. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kenny, Councillor Desmarais. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. Members, before I ask for a motion to go into closed session, I do want to announce to the public a few meetings that are upcoming. First off, I do want to announce that Monday, May 14th will be our next Committee of the Whole meeting and Council meeting here in the Council Chamber, beginning at 6:30 p.m. Following that, May 28th, the Committee of the Whole Council here, once again in the Chamber, beginning at 6:30 p.m. And I also want to encourage members of the public to take full advantage of this week's 100th anniversary celebration over at D. Ricardo School on the east side. They are having an open house from 2 to 4 and the formal ceremony from 4 to 4:30. There's a great deal of family fun with the family fun night from 5 to 7. But by all means, I think everyone either has went or had a family member go to or knows someone that was educated over at D. Ricardo School. And celebrating their 100th anniversary is quite a milestone. So I encourage members of our community and other neighboring communities that might be interested to come on down and enjoy the 100th anniversary celebration over at D. Ricardo School. So with that, I'm going to ask for a motion to go into closed session so that council can now proceed in camera in order to address two items. One is the minutes of the closed session portions of the March 19th, 2012 special council meeting and the March 26th, 2012 council meeting. And secondly, a memorandum from the Chief Administrative Officer dated April 23rd, 2012 regarding legal advice concerning in-camera confidentiality pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. So with that, a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bodner, Councillor Kenny. Are there any questions or comments? With none, all those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. We'll now move on to closed session. Have a wonderful week.